Elohim is wrongly translated as God instead of gods. Jehovah is wrongly translated as the Lord. Names are not translated, but they translated Jehovah. A name that they don't even know the spelling, a name that they don't even know. So just keep it as it is. Just keep the tetragrammaton, because you don't even know the correct spelling of the name. You don't even know the correct pronunciation of the name, let alone the meaning. So how come you are able to translate it? But they translated the name. And they have a reason for translating the name. The biggest deception in the world. And it was all a conspiracy in the translated version. A conspiracy to present Jehovah Elohim as God, the creator. The whole of this deception and conspiracy started with Genesis chapter 1 verse 1, where the term Elohim, which means gods, were translated. They all conspire to translate Elohim, which means gods, as God. So the plural is turned into a singular in Genesis chapter 1 verse 1. So after turning Elohim into a singular, then they manipulated the text to present the God of Israel as that singular God. You see the trick now. So let's turn Elohim into singular, gods into God, and then present the God that we want to present as that God. So Jehovah Elohim is then presented as that God, the creator. So now they then go into all tribes and all languages to find out the name of God the creator, and then translate the Bible and translate the name of God of Israel to match the name of God the creator that they know. That they translate the God of Israel, the name of God of Israel, to match the name of God the creator that you know. So in Ghana, my country, for example, in my language, then they will translate the tetragrammaton, a name that they don't even know the spelling, let alone the pronunciation, let alone the meaning. They will translate this name to match Yenu, the God, the creator that I know, to deceive me to believe that this Bible is actually written by Yenu, God, the creator that I knew, not knowing this God, the creator, is actually not the one who wrote this book, but it's rather a mountain war God in Sinai Mountain that has been presented to me as the Yenu that I know. So among the accounts, this war deity in Mount Sinai is presented as Nyankopon to them, deceiving them to believe that this Jehovah Elohim is actually the Nyankopon that they know. So that is how they violated the rule of translation, because names are not translated. So how come they were translating Jehovah Elohim as a Radin Nyankopon to deceive the accounts that the Radin Nyankopon that you know is the one who wrote this book, when it was actually written by Jehovah Elohim, and the Jehovah doesn't mean a Radin, it doesn't mean Nyankopon. Elohim don't mean Nyankopon in Twi. Elohim means bosom. Welcome to part 1 of this series of analysis. Jehovah Elohim, God or Satan? Jehovah Elohim, is he God or Satan? Is he a force of light or darkness? Is he God or God? Is he God or God? Sound confusion, because the Bible says he's God, and why are you asking, is God God or God? Is God God or God? This confusion comes because the English language does not distinguish between the gods. In my language, God in Moal, which is the language spoken by Moba people in the northern region and northern part of Togo, northern region of Ghana and Togo, a tribe in which I come from, we have various names to distinguish between the gods. We have Yenu, Tingbana, Pata, Jabuna, Chicheli. All these are names to distinguish between the various gods. So if I want to ask, this God that you are talking about, is he Yenu or Tengban? It will be clear in my language, but in the English, you can't distinguish between Yenu, Tengban, Pata, Jabuna, Chicheli, and those different gods that exist. So you only have one term, God, for all different kinds of gods. And they only differentiate between the gods with small g and big G, which even when you are speaking, there's no difference unless you write it down before you see that, oh, okay, this one is small g and it means bigger God, and smaller God, and this one is big G, it means bigger God. So when you are communicating, you are trying to distinguish between gods and other divine beings, it becomes difficult in the English language. And in any language, if you don't have certain terminologies in that language, it means that the ancestors of that language who developed the language did not have that thing in their consciousness. This shows how poor the English is when it comes to communicating spiritual issues. The Israeli language, in which the Bible was also written from, you see that same problem exists there, because they too use Eloah and Elohim to represent all kinds of gods and gods. And it's just not helpful in communication. But in my language, we can distinguish between all different kinds of gods. And also, even these 5 that I've listed here are different type of gods. But apart from this, we also even have nature beings and elemental beings. And these nature beings and elemental beings are also called according to the element in which they represent. So our language is rich in communicating spiritual issues. But in the English, you're only limited to one word, God. And it's only even in written that you can use smaller g and bigger G to differentiate between a big God and a small God. So as we move ahead, let's put this difficulty in communicating divine beings in mind in the English language. This poor language in terms of spirituality are those who actually came to Africa to teach us spirituality when they don't even have vocabulary to communicate spiritual issues. But let's keep these limitations in mind and move ahead with our analysis. This God that we are talking about are known and called by various names: God of Abraham, God of Isaac, God of Israel, God of the Bible, or the Bible God, God of the Christians, or the Christian God, Yahweh, Jehovah Elohim, and Jehovah Elohim. For the purpose of this analysis, we will go by the name Jehovah Elohim, because that's the name that runs through the Bible many times. So that's the main name of the God of the Bible, Jehovah Elohim. So we are going by this name to do this analysis. We humans have lived here on this earth thousands of years, billions of years, maybe before Abraham was born. Humans lived here thousands of years before Abraham was born. We knew God, the Creator. We knew other gods, the smaller gods. We worshipped the Creator. We honored the Creator. We worshipped the other gods, the lesser gods, for thousands of years, maybe millions of years, maybe billions of years before Abraham was born. But this Jehovah Elohim, the God that we are talking about, was unknown before Abraham was born. This God introduced himself to Abraham and became the God of Abraham. So at that time of Abraham, it was only Abraham and his family that worshipped this God called Jehovah Elohim. So Jehovah Elohim was not known, but God the Creator was known. The other gods of other nations were all known, honored, and worshipped, but Jehovah Elohim was unknown. Only Abraham knew that there is a God called Jehovah Elohim who have introduced himself to him. So he and his family worshipped Jehovah Elohim. So he was a family God, a family deity. So this God introduced himself to Abraham and asked him to leave his father's land, the land of Ur. So Abraham left his father's house and settled in the land of Canaan under the direction of this God that he has met. Canaan is the land called Palestine today. Israel and Palestine is located on that land called Canaan. And that is where Abraham migrated from his hometown of Ur, which is Iraq, Nasiriyah area of Iraq, onto the land of Canaan and settled there with this God called Jehovah Elohim, which was then a family God. No other nation worshipped this God apart from Abraham and his family. Abraham gave birth to Ishmael and Isaac. Ishmael and his mother left and went back to their hometown. Abraham and Isaac lived in that strange land of Canaan. They were strangers on that land of Canaan, migrated from the land of Ur. Abraham died and handed over this God to his son. So the God of Abraham became God of Isaac. Isaac gave birth to Esau and Jacob. Esau also migrated somewhere and left Jacob. And Jacob had an encounter with this God of his father. And this God changed his name from Jacob to Israel. Israel or Israel. Israel or Israel. Whichever way you pronounce it. I don't know the correct pronunciation, so I would say Israel or Israel. So this God of Abraham became God of Isaac, and God of Isaac became God of Israel. And Israel gave birth to 12 sons. And these 12 sons of Israel migrated from the land of Canaan and settled in the land of Egypt. When they went to the land of Egypt, this God of their fathers were forgotten. After 400 years, this God of their fathers introduced himself to one of them by name Moses. At that time, the children of Israel, who came from the 12 sons of Israel, have multiplied into hundreds of thousands. But at that time, they were under slavery now. The Egyptians have enslaved them. And this God, with his miraculous powers, through Moses, led the children of Israel out of Egypt and sent them back to the land of Canaan, a land he promised to give to Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, their forefathers. This is the short history, which is a long history anyway, but I've just tried to summarize it very concise way so that this video don't get long with the stories. But those who are interested in the full story can read the book of Genesis, starting from chapter 11 up to the book of Exodus. They will understand the full story. So this is the summary of the story of a family God who have now become the God of Israel, because Israel has now become a nation, a full group of people that were now numbering hundreds of thousands or maybe a million. Take note that this family God, God of Abraham, has become God of Israel, and Israel has grown into a full nation, and this God have led this now multitude out of Egypt and have brought them to the land of Canaan, where he promised to give to them. He was a family God, not God of a town, no, just God of a family, a family of Abraham. He was not God of any nation. No nation even knew him. He was just a God of a particular family, the family of Abraham. And the family grew. And over hundreds of years, that family became huge, multitude. And this God used war and ethnic cleansing to eliminate the true owners of the land, committed genocide against the true owners of the land, and took over that land and gave it to his family, the family of Abraham, which is now the family of Israel. Let's take note of this very well. So before you argue that this is the God that created the universe, you have to know where this God started as a family God in which no nation even knew. And that family started with Abraham. But God the Creator was known and honored and worshipped by other nations. And this God today in the Bible that we are claiming that he is the God of the universe at that time was not even known by anybody. But the God of the universe was known and honored and worshipped by all tribes in Africa, including my people. And we call him Yenu. We knew Yenu when we didn't even know that there's a country called Israel, let alone a God of that country, let alone a book of that God. We knew Yenu. Everywhere in Ghana, all the tribes knew about the creator of this multiverse. In pouring libation, all the divine protocols were observed from the creator of the universe down to the ancestral spirit. We honored all of them. But we did not know that there is a book called Bible. No, we didn't even know there's a country called Israel. Even when the Bible came to Africa, most of us didn't even know that Israel is a land existing here on this earth. It looks funny, but it's true. Me, for example, I myself, when I was a child, I thought Israel didn't exist here on this earth. I thought it was, they are talking about a country somewhere in another planet or somewhere, because I didn't even know that Israel existed here on this earth. Though we're even reading the Bible, reading about Israel, but we didn't even know Israel exists here on this earth. Yet we know about God, we know about God the Creator, but we didn't know about Israel. We didn't know about the God of that land, and we didn't know about a book written by the God of that land. So let's take note of this and make progress. What is the meaning of Jehovah? Jehovah came from the Tetragrammaton, which means 4 letters. And these 4 letters are YHWH. This came from the Hebrew equivalent of Yod, He, Va, He. These were the letters used to represent the name of God in the Bible, in the Hebrew text. The writers didn't write the full name of their God. they wrote it in either abbreviated form or acronym. So over time, the actual meaning and pronunciation of this name became a problem. Some scholars believe that it was not an abbreviation, but it was a name in which the vowels were removed and left with only the consonant. So they tried to fix the vowels back in order to get the original name. So some place A in front of the Y and E in front of the W and came by the name Yahweh. So they called the God of Israel, Yahweh. Others, in trying to fix the vowels back, place E in front of Y, O in front of H, and A in front of W in order to get the name Jehovah. Jehovah because the W is Va, not Wa. That's the Hebrew language. In the Hebrew language, the W is WV and not W. So it is pronounced like a V and not like W in English. So we have Jehovah in the Hebrew pronunciation. But in English, as usual, Hebrews Y are always replaced with English J. So we have Jehovah instead of Jehovah. So this is the manipulation that was done in order to recover the name of this God of Israel. So the name is complicated. Was it an acronym? Was it an abbreviation? Or was it just a name in which the vowels were removed and left with the consonant? So many goes by the letter, that it was a name the vowels were removed, leaving only consonant. But in fixing vowels back, we know the number of vowels that we have. If you are trying to fix vowels back, then this name, you can fix a whole lot of vowels into this name to get different versions of the name. So Yahweh and Jehovah is not the only versions that we can get from this name by trying to replace it with vowels. But that is how far we've gotten to Yahweh and Jehovah. Which one is correct? Is it Yahweh or Jehovah? I don't know. The Bible scholars too are debating whether it's Yahweh or Jehovah. And if you ask me, I would say either one is correct or they are all wrong. Either one is correct or they are all wrong, because I can also fix vowels into this name and get even more than 10 different versions of this name by manipulating the vowels in these letters. So which one is correct? Nobody knows. So the actual name of this God is not even clearly known. So we just go by the popular one, Jehovah. So in this analysis, we just take Jehovah, which is the most popular, than Yahweh. So we are taking Jehovah to do our analysis. And since they wrote it in the Tetragrammaton, the Israelites used to call this God Adonai, which means the Lord or Master. So since they didn't know how to pronounce the name, they just called him the Lord. But in writing, they still write the abbreviated name, but in communication, in talking about this God, in discussions, or even in reading, they will just replace the Tetragrammaton with Adonai. So you see that when you are reading the English Bible and other versions of the Bible, Jehovah or the Tetragrammaton, YHWH, is translated as the Lord. The Lord. So which means that they adopted the casual one instead of using the original name, the four-letter name, but they rather use the casual one, the Lord. But this is a wrong translation. It's wrong to translate Jehovah as the Lord, because that's not the meaning of Jehovah. Jehovah doesn't mean the Lord. Nobody even knows the correct pronunciation of the name, let alone the meaning. And when you are translating texts, you don't even translate names. So why did they translate it from Jehovah to the Lord when they know very well that names are not translated? The meaning of Elohim. In the Hebrew language, Elohim is a plural noun meaning gods. Gods. And Eloah is the singular of Elohim, which means God. So Eloah stands for God and Elohim stands for gods. Let's go into the Bible and read from Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. And I'm reading from the King James Version of the Bible with strong concordance. The strong concordance helps you to understand the original words that were used in the Bible. So you can insert the Hebrew word reference into the King James Version of the Bible, so that you can, when you click the reference, especially when you are using the software version, I'm using the software on my phone. So when you click the Hebrew word reference, it will take you into the Hebrew dictionary so that you can find the meaning of the Hebrew word that was translated. So by so doing, I can get more understanding into the words that were translated into the English version of the Bible. So that's what I'm using here, because I want to go back to the Hebrew words to find the meaning of that Hebrew words that were used here. So in Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, it is written, "In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth." And the word that is interesting to me here is God. So here the English text says, "In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth." God created the heaven and the earth. So I want to find out from the Hebrew text, what was the word used for God here? When I checked, the word was Elohim, which means that the correct translation should have been this. In the beginning, gods with S, plural gods, created the heaven and the earth. That should have been the correct translation. The gods and not God. Because the word here is Elohim and not Eloah. But why did they translate Elohim as God instead of gods? You will later know. In a subsequent slide, I will explain why they translated it this way. But it's not a good thing. So it's a wrong translation to translate Elohim as God instead of gods. Somebody will say that some words are both singular and plural at the same time. Yes, I know there are words that can be singular and plural, and you know whether it's singular or plural depending on the context. But not Elohim, because the singular of Elohim is also there, Eloah, which is also used in this Bible, and we are going to read it. So it is not that the Elohim can be singular and plural, and then depending on the context, then you either determine whether it is singular or plural. No, Elohim is plural, finished. The singular one is Eloah, and is there and is also used in this Bible. The Elohim can also be used as a title for any god. Any god can be called Elohim. So if the name of that God is one power, then you call that God Elohim one power. If the God name is Kofi, you call him Elohim Kofi. So in using the Elohim as a title for God, then the Elohim becomes a title. It's no more a noun, but a title. So in that case, it's the Elohim is used and not Eloah. So in Genesis chapter 1, Elohim is translated as God instead of gods. In the same Genesis chapter 3, verse 5, let's read Genesis chapter 3, verse 5 and see. For God do know that in the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes will be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. Here, the first God is translated from the word Elohim. For God do know that in the day ye eat thereof. So God here is translated from the word Elohim, God with big G. Then the last one, which is God, is also translated from the same Hebrew word Elohim. So without translating Elohim, let me read it. For Elohim do know that in the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as Elohim, knowing good and evil. So you see that the first one, they are translating Elohim as God, and the last one, they are translating Elohim as gods. So you see that they are manipulating the translation here for a purpose. Let's go to the same Genesis, chapter 31, verse 30. Genesis chapter 31, verse 30. And now, though thou wouldest need be gone, because thou so longest after thy father's house, yet wherefore hast thou stolen my gods? Here is Laban, an uncle of Jacob, asking Jacob, yes, you long to go to your father's house. That is, you miss your father's house. And you want to leave my house and go. But why have you stolen my gods? So the gods here is translated from the same Hebrew word, Elohim. So here, somebody's Elohim is stolen and he's chasing for it. He's chasing Jacob and his wife Rahel, or Raquel, whichever way you pronounce it. He's chasing them, searching them for his Elohim that has been stolen. So, in reading the Hebrew text, you see that Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, the Elohim created the heaven and the earth. Adam and Eve ate the fruit and became Elohim, became as Elohim, knowing good and evil. And here, somebody's Elohim have been stolen. The point I'm making here is that in the Hebrew language, Elohim means gods of all kinds. The creator, the lesser ones, those that can be stolen, were all referred to as Elohim. I'm pointing this out because many Christians think that Elohim means God the creator of the universe. No. Elohim means gods. Any God is Elohim. So it doesn't mean the creator only, because in this text, there's no distinction between the creator Elohim and the other Elohim. They are all Elohim. In Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 15, Eloah, which is the singular of Elohim, appeared here and is translated as God. Take note that in chapter 1, in Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, Elohim is translated as God. And in Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 17, or verse 15 and 17, Eloah is also translated as God. So you see that the plural is translated as God, Elohim, and the singular Eloah is also translated as God here. So this is inconsistency in translation. Let's read Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 17. They sacrifice unto devils, not to God, to gods whom they knew not, to new gods that came newly up. whom your fathers feared not. So here, God is accusing the Israelites of sacrificing unto gods instead of God. So here too you see that Eloah is translated as God here, and Elohim is translated as gods here. So here, because the two appear together, Eloah and Elohim appear together in the same verse, they've translated it correctly, translating the singular as singular and the plural as plural. So in this case, Eloah, which is the singular, is translated as God here, God with big G. And throughout this Bible, they make us to believe that the God with the big G is the true God, and the God with the small g is the false God. So here, if God with the small g is the false God, then it is the Elohim here translated as gods with the small g, which they are condemning the Israelites for worshiping the Elohim with gods with the small g. And this same Elohim are the gods that created the heaven and the earth in Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. And here they are being condemned for worshiping these gods, that Elohim, which created the heaven and the earth. They are condemning them for worshiping that Elohim instead of worshiping Eloah, which is the singular God. So you see the confusion in translating. So translation is done haphazardly without following a rule. Translating Elohim as gods and translating the same Elohim as God and translating Eloah as God and creating confusion. But it is intentionally done, and I will show you why. Now, before I tell you the reason for this mismatch in translation, let's read Genesis chapter 18. Genesis chapter 14, rather. Genesis chapter 14, verse 18. And Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought forth bread and wine, and he was the priest of the Most High God. Here, the Most High God is translated from the word Elyon El, Elyon El, which is translated as the Most High God, the Most High God. We've already read Genesis chapter 31, verse 30, where the gods, the Elohim of Laban, were stolen by Rahel, the wife of Jacob, and he was chasing them for it. The Elohim that created the heaven and the earth were stolen, and Laban was chasing for his Elohim. In Genesis chapter 31, verse 30. Let's look at 1 Kings chapter 11, verse 33. 1 Kings chapter 11, verse 33. Because that they have forsaken me and have worshipped Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Zidonians, Chemosh, the god of the Moabites, and Milcom, the god of the children of Ammon, and have not walked in my ways to do that which is right in my eyes, and to keep my statutes and my judgment, as did David his father. So here we have God accusing the king of Israel of leading the children of Israel astray into the worship of other gods and not worshiping him, Jehovah Elohim, as his father David did. So this king was a son of David called Solomon. So God is accusing Solomon, the son of David, of not worshiping him as his father David did, but he rather led the people to worship other gods. And here, the words used here is the same Elohim used for these other gods. Astoret, the Elohim of the Zidonians, Chemosh, the Elohim of the Moabites, and Milcom, the Elohim of the children of Ammon. I'm just trying not to translate the Elohim, but to put the Elohim where they are placed in the Hebrew text. So you say that all these other gods were also referred to as Elohim. So the point I'm making here is that in this Bible, all other gods and goddesses are all referred to as Elohim. So Elohim means gods, including Jehovah. The God of this Bible is part of the gods with small g, according to this Bible. But it is the English translators that tried their best to hide this fact. But let's assume that the Jehovah, the God of the Bible, the God of the Christian God, was not part of the small gods with small g. Let's accept that argument and read Genesis chapter 3, verse 5 and 22. So for the one who is arguing that Jehovah Elohim is not part of the small gods, gods with small g, let's read Genesis chapter 3, verse 5. For God do know that in the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. So here we have gods, small g. So he said to Adam and Eve that when they eat the fruit, they will become like the gods, small g with s. They'll become like the gods. They ate the fruit, and what happened? Let's listen to the comments God made in verse 22. God said in verse 22, let's read it. Genesis 3, verse 22. And the Lord God said, behold, the man is become as one of us, to know good and evil. And now, lest he put forth his hand, and take also the tree of life, and eat and live forever. So here, God is saying that Adam, the man is become as one of us, including his Jehovah Elohim himself. Jehovah Elohim is talking here and saying that the man has become like one of us. What is the us here? The us here represents the gods, the small g, the gods with small g. Because the snake told them that when they eat the fruit, they'll become like the gods with small g. And Elohim, the God that you said he is not part of the small g, is talking here in chapter 3, verse 22, that man is become like us, including himself, which means he is part of the gods with the small g. and man has eaten the fruit and has become like us, including himself. So before you argue, read the Bible very well and realize that God himself confirmed that he is part of the Elohim, the gods with the small g, and he has become like him. But as I'm telling you, you see, this God with big G and God with small g is just the translator manipulation, because the original text, that differentiation is not there. So when you are reading the superficial translation of the English version and you are making your argument, just go and check very well. You will see that in the Hebrew text, is the same Elohim being translated as God with big G and God with small g. And they are just manipulating your mind to fool you to believe that God with small g represent the other gods and God with big G represent the God of Israel, when the Hebrew text don't even offer such distinction. Because that was what I said earlier in the first slide, that the Hebrew text and the English text is not rich in spiritual vocabulary, and it's therefore difficult to even differentiate between the gods, because the same term is used for both the creator and the other gods, and there's difficulties in communicating these terminologies. So the English translators are just translating the Bible to make us believe that everything here is God of Israel. So you want us to believe that the Eloah, the singular God, Eloah, singular, meaning God, and Elohim, the plural, is also God. Then the Elohim, the same Elohim, is also God. And then El Elyon is the God, the Most High God. So you want us to believe that God of Israel is a singular God, Eloah, and at the same time a plural God, Elohim, and at the same time the Most High God. How possible? How can you be singular God, one God, and be many gods and be the Most High of the gods at the same time? How possible? For you to have Most High God, then you must have many gods, so that among the many gods, you have the Most High among them. But you can't tell me that you are the many gods and at the same time the singular God and at the same time the Most High, when this same God is telling you that there's no other God. So if there's no other God, how are you the Most High if there's no other God? How can you be the Most High when there is nothing to compare with? How can you be the Most High God when there are no other gods? How can you be the Most High? And even if you are the Most High of what? It depends on the set of gods that you are dealing with. Look at this diagram. I've just made some illustration here. We have the green circle and the blue circle. The green circle contains icons, and these icons represent gods. So here there are 5 gods, and here there are 4 gods. This smiley face, red smiley face, the red smiley face icon represent gods. So we have God number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And here we have God number 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's assume that this circle green is country A or civilization A dealing with these gods. So their Most High God here will be God number 5. Their Most High will be God number 5, because these are the set of gods known to them. These are the set of gods they know and they are dealing with. So if you are dealing with this 5 set of gods, then the number 5, God number 5, will be your Most High God. In another civilization or in another country, they are also dealing with this 5 set of gods, this 4 set of gods. And their God number 4 is their Most High God. So when somebody is saying Most High God, it means nothing. It depends on the set of gods that he's choosing the Most High from. So if you are choosing the Most High from this set of gods, then you choose God number 5, but this Most High God here among this set of gods is actually smaller than the smallest God in this set. So if somebody is telling you, oh, this is the Most High God, the question now is, what was the set of God that he was choosing from? What was the set of gods that he chose the Most High from? So Most High doesn't mean Most High. It just means the Most High from the set of gods that he's choosing from. It doesn't mean Most High. The Most High God in some civilization may be smaller God in another one. And going through the Bible, you can see that the Vedic gods didn't appear in the Bible. The Vedic gods didn't appear in the Bible. The gods of India and the Oriental religions, they didn't appear in the Bible. Maybe the Bible writers didn't even know that those gods exist. The Bible writers didn't even know maybe that Lord Ganesha exists. They didn't know Durga exists. They didn't know Goddess Kali exists. They didn't know Lord Shiva exists. So they were not even considered when choosing which God is the most high. So they are dealing with their set of gods and they are choosing their most high, ignoring other set of gods in other civilizations. Because this Bible was written in Israel. This Bible was written in Israel, and in those time information was scarce. And there was no vehicle for traveling, so people couldn't travel to other civilizations and other countries. It was a difficult thing to travel to faraway lands. So gods that were faraway lands were not known by others. So how can we know that even if the God of Israel was the Most High among what? Most High among the gods that were around the Canaan land. That's all. He was the Most High among the gods around the Canaan land. But if you brought the gods from India, you brought Goddess Kali and Great Madurga and Lord Shiva, maybe he could have turned into a small boy. You don't know. So how do you know whether he was the Most High or not? Most High in the gods around the Sinai Peninsula. He was the Most High there, yes. But when you bring other gods, he could have been small boy there. So Most High is not Most High. It depends on the set of gods that you are choosing from. They violated the rules of translation. Elohim is wrongly translated as God instead of gods. Jehovah is wrongly translated as the Lord. Names are not translated, but they translated Jehovah. A name that they don't even know the spelling, a name that they don't even know. So just keep it as it is. Just keep the tetragrammaton because you don't even know the correct spelling of the name. You don't even know the correct pronunciation of the name, let alone the meaning. So how come you are able to translate it? But they translated the name. And they have a reason for translating the name. The biggest deception in the world. God and gods, God with big G, God with small g, no difference. They mean the same thing in the Hebrew text. And Jehovah Elohim is part of the small gods. Jehovah Elohim is part of gods with the small g. As I told you, the big G, small g is not even there in the Hebrew text. They are all coming from the word Elohim. And it was all a conspiracy in the translated version. A conspiracy to present Jehovah Elohim as God, the creator, and leave the other gods as the lesser gods. But Jehovah Elohim and all the other gods were all lesser gods. The whole of this deception and conspiracy started with Genesis chapter 1 verse 1, where the term Elohim, which means gods, were translated. They all conspire to translate Elohim, which means gods, as God. So the plural is turned into a singular in Genesis chapter 1 verse 1. So after turning Elohim into a singular, then they manipulated the text to present the God of Israel as that singular God. You see the trick now. So let's turn Elohim into singular, gods into God, and then present the God that we want to present as that God. So Jehovah Elohim is then presented as that God, the creator. So now they then go into all tribes and all languages to find out the name of God, the creator, and then translate the Bible and translate the name of God of Israel to match the name of God, the creator that they know, that they translate the God of Israel, the name of God of Israel to match the name of God, the creator that you know. So in Ghana, my country, for example, in my language, then they will translate the tetragrammaton, a name that they don't even know the spelling, let alone the pronunciation, let alone the meaning. They'll translate this name to match Yenu, the God, the creator that I know, to deceive me to believe that this Bible is actually written by Yenu, God, the creator that I knew. Not knowing this God, the creator, is actually not the one who wrote this book, but it's rather a mountain war God in Sinai Mountain that has been presented to me as the Yenu that I know. So among the accounts, this war deity in Mount Sinai is presented as Nyankopon to them, deceiving them to believe that this Jehovah Elohim is actually the Nyankopon that they know. So that is how they violated the rule of translation, because names are not translated. So how come they were translating Jehovah Elohim as a Radin Nyankopon to deceive the accounts that the Radin Nyankopon that you know is the one who wrote this book, when it was actually written by Jehovah Elohim, and the Jehovah doesn't mean Radin, it doesn't mean Nyankopon. Elohim don't mean Nyankopon in Twi. Elohim means bosom. So by this subtle and deceptive translation of the Bible, they are able to deceive all people around the world to believe that there's once a family God, God of Abraham, a family God that was not even known by anybody in this world, is the creator of this universe, because they've translated his name to match the name of the creator God that you know, to fool you into believing that this Jehovah Elohim is actually the creator God, when indeed he is nothing. This was a family God, and the family themselves migrated from land of Canaan into Egypt and even forgot about that God until he came again to Moses. And then through war and wars and ethnic cleansing, established them on the land of Canaan. And then the Roman Empire took this God and promoted him. And he promoted this God because riding on the popularity of Jesus Christ. So by riding on the popularity of Jesus Christ, they took this God together with Jesus Christ's popularity and then created a religion out of it. And they were able to impose this religion, convert or die. They put a gun on your head, forcing the whole world or forcing those that were under the Roman Empire to either believe in this God or be killed. So with their papal inquisitions, they were able to impose these gods on the Europeans and use it to control them. The Europeans also saw that, yeah, the Roman Empire used this one to control us, so they also went and colonized Africa and also imposed this god upon them and used it to also control them. So it is just a Sinai mountain god, a mountain deity, whose name is not even clear to us, that has been promoted by the Roman Empire, riding on the popularity of Jesus Christ. They imposed this God upon all people that they were controlling. And today, everybody is believing that this God created heaven and earth. This is funny. We have been deceived. But I don't want this video to be too long, so I will end here and come again with the next part 2. So you can subscribe to this channel so that you can receive notification when I come with part 2. This is going to be many parts. This is just a part 1. We are just introducing this God. You've not seen anything yet. But I'm going to base everything in the Bible, as you can see from today. Though I'm very critical of this God, but I've not gone outside the Bible. I've just stayed within the Bible itself. I've not even gone out of this Bible. Because once I go out of the Bible, the Christian will just even start criticizing that. Why are you criticizing our Bible with another thing? So I'm just staying within the Bible. Because the Bible is even its own critic. Because lies cannot stand. So if the Bible itself is a lie, then when you start analyzing the Bible itself becomes its own critic. So I will not even go outside the Bible to criticize the Bible. I'll just stay within the Bible and use that same Bible to prove to you that that Bible is wrong. Because you can see from the history of this God that a God that was not even known, yet the creator God was known. People that didn't even know Israel exists, even after receiving the Bible, I still didn't even know as a child. I didn't even know even Israel exists. So people didn't even know Israel exists. But yet they knew God and gods. And they honored this God and gods all across the land of Africa and other places. So how can you go and pick a god of another nation, a mountain god, who have no mercy, a wicked genocidal God who destroyed Jericho, destroying the Amalek, destroying the Canaanites and all this, and even today, what they did in those days, today, look at what is happening in Gaza. I don't want to go far. So let's end here, and I will come with the next part. The next part, we are going to look at the creation story of this God and see the creation of Adam and Eve and analyze that one also. So stay tuned and subscribe as I bring you the next part. Thank you for watching so far. Be good.